We have a short agenda because the Comcast team wants to push their talk for next week. So we really just have one talk. And I guess, Ashley, you can start recording.
Are we doing weekly cab calls now, or are they?
Not next week, sorry, next month.
No, sorry.
Yeah, my bad. Yeah, I was distracted. So what we'll do is the typical things. We'll get an update, and then from the different PMCs and also from Chip. And then we'll give Dr. Nick Williams all the time in the world to tell us what's going on. He's been playing with sidecars and I guess buildpacks or buildpacks with sidecars. I don't know, something like that. Should be fun, as you know from Nick presenting.
It won't be fun. It'll be educational.
There you go. There you go. Even better. All right. So Chip, I heard your voice. Maybe I know Swerna cannot make it. She posted a bunch of updates. So no need. I mean, I guess everybody can go and read it. But Chip, do you want to highlight anything or tell us something new or say hi?
Yeah. Hey, I'll just highlight a couple. Like you said, there's a bunch of stuff in the agenda. Two things that are worth highlighting. EU Summit schedule's going live tomorrow, which is great. That should be a lot of fun. And the other thing that I'll highlight is that there's the Contributor Summit that we're having tied to the larger CF Summit. That's going to be on September 10th, starting at 9 in the morning, right? So don't arrive if you plan to come to the Contributor Summit. Don't arrive on the 10th in the afternoon because you'll have missed it. We did that as an experiment in the North America event back in April. It seemed to go fairly well, but we also learned a lot. And we're going to iterate a bunch on the format, thanks to Yui and Eric and Marco and Matt, who spent some time thinking about how to make that more effective. And it's definitely worth your time if you're contributing to any of the projects or if you want to contribute to any of the projects. So take a look at the CF Summit Europe schedule and you'll see it there. I think that's it.
All right, thank you, Chip. So Swerna added a couple more things that I think maybe I want to highlight. She mentions that now Abby has AMA for people. If you're not part of the cool new kids, AMA is Ask Me Anything. People has been doing it forever, but I guess Abby is doing it now, and
yeah. So let me give some context on that. One of the things that we've recognized is that the CFF membership, right, the individuals that represent the companies that provide a lot of the funding, maybe don't necessarily understand, for example, that the events run generally at a small loss or break even, right? So what we wanted to do was to make sure that there's a little bit more conversation about the reality of the organization and kind of how things are working, where things can improve. So we've had 2 of them so far. It's generally sent out to the official contacts at the various member companies. But if you would like to join the next one, you can reach out to Bree, as noted there, and we'll make sure that you're added to the list so you can see it, and join in and be part of that conversation. So it's less about the technology and it's more about the CFF organization itself. And Dr. Max, I think you were going to hit some of these other ones, so I'll toss these out.
Yep.
Dr. Nick inspired us when he offered to provide a few awesome videos. And we'd love to have other videos like that published in the Cloud Foundry YouTube account. So it's a cool opportunity if you actually want to record a new feature that you've built, or really, I think a lot of the demos that are shown off at Lab Call, if they're tightened up and shortened, they could become a pretty interesting informational video. We'd love to have those as well. So again, Bree's your lady. She's got a publishing guide pulled together for that, and we'd love to have more material up there. So those are probably the 2 big new ones there.
All right, thank you, Chip. Perfect. Any questions for Chip or for the foundation? Any comment? Okay, so I guess I'll remind everybody to register for the summit. It's coming up. Contributor code is out, and then I guess schedule will be out soon. So join us in The Hague and the Netherlands.
Yeah,
And
schedule out tomorrow.
Yeah, it starts September 11th, which is an easy day to remember. So join before to come to the Contributor Summit. All right. Next thing we do is we usually go over the PMCs, and we have Eric here that's going to highlight, I guess, the runtime stuff.
Hey, Dr. Max. Yeah, thanks. Just mention a few highlights from the past month or so within the runtime PMC. As usual, we've had some CF deployment releases. I think our latest CF deployment was 9.3.0, and that's mostly bumping the component releases for new functionality, but I think that's also fixed a few things around component metrics, as Logaggregator's been making some changes to the agent reporting structure there. There's also been a recent CLI release, 645, and that's continuing to improve support for client credentials. I know they've been making some improvements around how CF OAuth token works related to client credentials. Other things that have been ongoing, the CAPI team is continuing to progress on supporting more features for sidecars. I know they've been working with the buildpacks team to develop a contract for how buildpacks can supply sidecar information and have that get wired into CAPI automatically. And then they've also been working with the Diego team to figure out how they want to structure more independent limits on those sidecar processes. So like potentially being able to provide a different file system or more independent partition to memory limits for the process that's running as a sidecar. Some other things that have been going on. I know Logaggregator's been continually improving some of the agent reporting wiring on the Logaggregator agents so that they can support syslog drains in an even more scalable way. There's been some issues. Hey, Josh, would you mind muting? And also related to scale, the Irene team has been making some improvements to support reliability of route registrations when they're running at moderate levels of scale. They're finding some inefficiencies in how they were reporting those, but I think those are just resolved now. One other thing potentially to watch out for, the Bubble Bosch bootloader tool just had a major release with a breaking change, again related to load balancers on AWS. I think they moved back to the classic Elastic load balancers instead of the application ones. So I think that's it for some highlights from the runtime PMC.
Sweet.
What was wrong with the application load balancers?
I don't really have a lot of the details. I think there's some information in the release notes. Something about supporting migrations better.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Any other questions for Eric? No? Okay, so
Sorry, I have a question. UA, I noticed in their release notes decided that they don't want to do two-factor authentication anymore. Do you know anything about the very short life of the two-factor feature set?
I think that may be related to UAA turning into more of an identity proxy to other systems and less as an identity store itself. So they may be viewing that as fundamentally out of scope for UAA, but probably Chow would be the one to contact about details for that.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Any other questions? Last call. All right, so the Bosch team, I guess Mukesh couldn't make it. He has some emergency, so I'm trying to get some highlights from them, and then I'll read it. So let me skip over that and go to extensions. So we really have kind of a set of graduating projects, and I'll just mention it this time, and then next time, you know, I guess just point to the release notes. So Autoscaler, you know, graduated, so they have release v 1.2.2. I think it's just a maintenance release. The buildpack stuff graduated, and now it's buildpacks.io, so you need to look at that. I know that Stephen Devine gave a couple talks both at CF Summit and also in Barcelona for KubeCon, where he kind of went over some of the latest stuff going on and in buildpack.io. So if you're interested in that, definitely it might be a good set of talk to look at. And then the Stratos, they made a request for graduation, so that probably will happen soon unless people object, but I doubt there's going to be any issue there. But I did ask Neil and the team to present at the next CAB, and they've agreed. And they showed me what they have, and it's really worth seeing because I won't steal too much of their thunder, but they added support for Kubernetes, and it's seamless. It's really, really, really cool. So they'll present that next time. Then we have the Abacus project, like I mentioned that last time, is going to move to the attic. And then 2 other projects that I didn't get any updates, partly also because the last monthly meeting was during a holiday, so we canceled it. So I should have stuff, I guess, updates for next time. Any questions on extensions? Okay, let me see if the Bosch team sent me anything. Okay, so I'm reading from Mukesh here. He said V1 manifest support is removed. So this is for Bosch. I'll add them to the agenda as well. And then he said, we're working to improve the behavior of start, stop, recreate, since we received some feedback that they have behaved unexpectedly and were difficult to use. So I guess those are 2 highlights for Bosch, and I'll paste that soon. Okay, so unless there are any questions for either Eric or myself, we're gonna pass the mic to Dr. Nick Williams, who everybody knows. He can be a joy to work with. I have to say, I personally can attest to that most of the time. So.
Hey, Dr. Max, this is Syed here.
Hey, Syed.
Sorry to interrupt you. Any updates on the buildpack v3 support on Cloud Foundry?
Actually, I don't have that because Stephen is not here.
Okay.
But I don't know, Eric. Do you have some info that you can share with Syed?
I think that efforts are underway on the buildpack team to transition to the cloud native buildpacks v3. The current plan is for there to be some sort of shim to allow running a v3 buildpack within the current Cloud Foundry staging process. So that might not take advantage of all of the features of v3 buildpacks. But the eventual plan is to rethink more generally how the staging process works within Cloud Foundry, so that it would be based more on the OCI image registry primitives that the Cloud Native Buildpacks v3 spec takes advantage of. So I know there's some work that Pivotal's planning to open source around that soon. And there's been some discussions amongst the project teams about how that's going to get integrated into Cloud Foundry.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Eric. All right. Any other questions? Anybody? Because we got a lot of time, so Nick should be okay.
Got to warm up.
Nice.
Cloud Foundry without stretching first.
All right. So I give you Nick William, Dr. Nick William. Go ahead. Take it.
You're a champion. Let me share the old screen where magic will happen, and then we'll there's some slides and they're on speaker deck, and I'll give you a URL, and then there's a bit of a walkthrough, a bit of a interactive activity. Well, I'll interact and you can passively sit there. But I think already shared in the CAB channel is kind of my walkthrough. I sent that to Dr. Max to prove that I had something to myself as much to him, but that's been shared, so that's cool. So that earlier I mentioned that we are that the buildpack and sidecar thing is underway. Hopefully this talk is topical and useful, because it goes back to a blog post that Tim came out with a couple months ago, and which I missed entirely. And I was not at the last cab call, but thank goodness the Altoros people have done, 5 great years of writing up these cab calls, because living in Australia, that's pretty much how I live them. I'm sorry to the recording team. I don't typically watch the cab call. I just read about it. And they mentioned a month ago, we talked about sidecars, and I was super excited by that. And in going through the walkthrough, I did Tim's walkthrough. I made that work. And the first thing that came out of my mind is, why would I want to push this? Wouldn't I use a build pack? And the build pack team agreed. Also, the Cappy team, I think, agreed. And so I started investigating this. And I wanted to share, my thoughts and experiments, and also to sort of, for anyone that's never made a build pack, just how simple it is to make like these, what I call singles build packs. And I think it's super valuable to start to look at build packs again if you've never built one, or look at the new tooling, especially with the V3 build pack stuff that's coming along. I think that's going to be a greater demand for functionality to be extracted into single purpose build packs. So here we go. Everything I'm going to talk about is V2 build packs, but we could do this talk again when we've got V3 build packs down the track. All right, so quickly, sidecars. Your app sits in a container. The black box is the container, perfectly isolating our application from the universe. Not mentioned here is port 8080, where traffic comes in, but you can add that to your own imagination. So the idea of a sidecar is this other process, and this config server kind of comes from Tim's demo, and this is his little snippet. So the premise is that we're going to run this other process in the same container, and since it shares the file system, we could our app could connect to our sidecar, or vice versa, really, either say over a socket or the shared file system, or a local port. My example here doesn't really match up to my, to the snippet I've got it below, which says that the shared port's 8082, but doesn't really matter. Whatever it is, however you want the two things to talk to each other, passively or actively, you can do that. What's, I guess, interesting and leads to what they were talking about a few minutes ago is in the current implementation, the way you run a sidecar, multiple sidecars, is in the application manifest. As a V3 app, you sort of say that here's the command. And you can see the last line is where we're going to sort of look at, well, how else can we do this? And that is, you can run an arbitrary command. And so this / suggests that the config server application is inside our application folder. And my hypothesis was that that is a weird and wonderful assumption that the developer would be pushing this app up. So let's look at some other examples, perhaps, of what else we might use sidecars, and then we'll get back to the build pack thing. This has been my sort of hope and dream, was that the world would move towards, proxies, so that my app would not talk directly to Postgres, that I would talk to a local proxy, and my proxy could worry about maintaining that relationship with Postgres through the life cycle of Postgres upgrades, failovers, etc. So this is actually the demo we're going to build later on, and it doesn't take very long at all. There is also perhaps the idea of running Nginx in the same. So this is kind of like a front-facing. The sidecar in this case might be the thing that receives the traffic initially and then forwards it on to the app. I did get this working in front of a Rails app, and it didn't make my app any faster, so I wasn't really sure what to do with that yet. I'm not sure whether I did it wrong, or perhaps just Rails asset pipeline is fast enough and it just doesn't serve a purpose. But if anyone wants to see what I did, I can show you. But that's another example of perhaps where sidecar, and I guess monitoring and other things. Arguably, Cloud Foundry is less used for sidecars, because Cloud Foundry does so much stuff already that a lower level system like Kubernetes, perhaps they use sidecars for all the things we do already in Cloud Foundry. But nonetheless, we have sidecars. Exciting times. But the thing Tim did was the premise of his thing was he pushed as a developer, he was responsible for pushing some version of the Sidecar software. Where he got that from as a developer is kind of not mentioned. Like, did he have the right version of config server? Did he have a patched version? Where is that line of responsibility? And one of the things I think Cloud Foundry has led the field on in the sort of platform space, and certainly all these other things that come along, seem to forget is this separation of concerns. What is the developer's concern, and should the developer be concerned with figuring out and uploading the config server? And I would argue that for many cases they should not. It is not their responsibility, and certainly for the examples we just gave, I can't quite imagine what the example is of a config server where the app developer would care about the implementation. So we have a model for that, and that is buildpack. So just as another example, if we were going to go with the etcd premise, arguably there is this other group of people who would care more about Sidecar software than the application developer, and that's probably the Sidecar, the etcd service team, whoever's running that service. And so it's more likely that they would take responsibility for distributing that Sidecar than it would be the developer. And so in that model, they would be more likely the people that own that software. Therefore, we have a model for that, and that is buildpacks. And so this is the rest of this talk: is, well, how do we build a buildpack if you've never done it before, and then on to running the Sidecar, which looks just like before, until we get, as Eric said, until we get a nicer way to run Sidecars, which is naturally through the buildpack, which is going to be super cool. And hopefully, perhaps even next month, we might have a solution to that. That would be super cool if they could say, and now here's how buildpacks run Sidecars. But today, we're just going to distribute software in a buildpack. And this is kind of what the manifest will look like at the end. We're going to have our new buildpack, and we'll have our explicit Sidecar. And I'm going to repeat myself. What sort of Eric was saying was that hopefully, if I was to add this etcd buildpack, I wouldn't perhaps need to explicitly say there's a Sidecar in my application manifest. Eric, is that right? That's the premise of what you were talking about?
Yeah, that's the idea. And Cappy and buildpacks are just working on what that contract would look like.
Yeah, so that's just super cool. And but right now you can still go through this process. Your application developers would need to explicitly say that there is a Sidecar. And this is this premise of a contract. Maybe instead of explicitly saying here is the command, you would extract that down one level to a shell script. But anyway, it's all work in progress. But you can get started. All right, so we are going to go through this little tutorial walkthrough now. And it'll be fun. I tend to call this a singles build pack because what we're going to do is make a build pack that does not contain lots of versions of something. Like the Ruby build pack, lots of versions of Ruby, and then the application sort of infers or suggests or whatever which particular Ruby it wants to install. The build pack we're going to build just has one version of, in this case, etcd. And if you really, really, really need an older version of etcd, then you can just explicitly use that old version of the build pack. Now, later on, maybe there's some break in that relationship where users definitely need an older version for some reason, and then you can make your build pack more complicated. But getting started, let's just package one thing and install that one thing. And if you update the build pack, then the next restage, you'll get the new Sidecar. And I'm going to use CFDev for development because at least I get to be admin. All right. Now, let's make a build pack. So now there is, what I'm not going to show you is the lib build. There is a tool chain called build pack packager, and it has like an init tool, and that'll build a scaffold, and that can be very helpful. I'm going to build it more from scratch. We're still going to use build pack packager to bundle it together, but we're just going to sort of do it the old with lower level shell scripts. So I'm going to need a bins folder. The contract for a supply build pack is pretty simple. It's you just create a supply script or a executable. So I'm going to make it a shell script, but it could be a binary. And we're going to need a version of what our build pack is. And the build pack packager will need a YAML file. Everything gets better if it's actually executable. All right, let's make our build pack. That already exists. No, what's that? That's not right. Thought I deleted this. There we go. All right, that's empty, and that's empty. We will come back to this in a second. I'm just mainly retentive, and I feel bad about that. So, what are we going to package? My hypothesis in this is that there is another team who's responsible for the sidecar. And that team is probably, in many organizations, responsible for the build pack. But even if not, it's not the developer. But we are going to, you can imagine a pipeline. Like imagine a concourse pipeline that just watches the upstream thing. In this case, we'd have a concourse pipeline watching the etcd release. We would get notified. It would get notified that there's a new etcd release. It would download a specific thing, get the SHA of it, and turn it into a new version of our build pack. And we're going to do this manually, but hopefully you can imagine what this would look like as a pipeline. All right, so new version came out. It's 3.3.13. I'm going to go with the, again, statement that the version of my build pack can be in sync with the upstream version of the thing. That this is just like a wrapper. It's not any fancier than it's just shipping that version. Anyone that wants to argue that this is a bad idea is very welcome to. But this is where we're going right now. So we're going to say that the version of the build pack equals the version of the thing we're packaging. All right, the next thing we need is the manifest, which, if you don't know what the schema is going to be not a lot of fun to work with. So I'm just going to copy one that I've, at least a starting point. All right, so we have a starting point, and you can borrow this structure from every other build pack that is published by the core team. Most of the build packs use the build pack packager tool. So let's rename this as etcd. I'm going to say that the tool, the thing we're packaging is etcd. I'm going to say the build pack is called the etcdproxy build pack because that's really what I'm using it for, and it makes me feel better about myself. And the version, again, this file would be created by your CI pipeline. And I think the version was 3. Where was it? 13. Yep. Dun, 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 dun. Make that go away. All right. That wasn't perfect. That's pretty good. Probably shouldn't have called it version. Oh, that was, what have I done? I've done terrible things. There we go. When you do this live, it's a little bit embarrassing. All right, we'll come back to the SHA. The URI, now, because one of the use cases of a build pack project is people might want to use the Git repo to do it, in which case they will want to download this thing. So we will, and since we can just get a download URL from the place that we're going to get it from, so we will just take that, get the URL, and we will just paste that in there. Turns out that if you're prepared to only work with cached build packs, then you don't have to push the thing up to the internet somewhere public. You could just have the thing local on a local file and then create your cached build pack and work with that. I don't know of anyone doing this, but it is a thing. I just want to mention it. But in our case, the upstream, this is where it comes from. And but the supply thing that I'm going to work on in the short term is going to assume that it's a cached version. I'm not going to go and fetch it from the internet. All right. I have already downloaded this. I don't, like, we can download this. How long could it take? Honestly, I'm in America. We have internet here. I'm a lot less, trusting of doing internet live in Australia. So let's get the SHA of that. There it is. Again, your concourse pipeline would get all these for you. We're good to go. So what do we do with this? What we do is we run the buildpack packager build command. And it will take that manifest. It will fetch all those URLs if they're not already in the cache and download them again. And then we will get our cached build pack. All right, so it built this for me, which is lovely. We can have a look inside it. And we can see that it's got the files that we said it would have. This is the included files. So any other files that are in my build pack are not being bundled because they're not useful. As I declare, they're not useful. And because I built a cached build pack, it has the assets in them. And so we can just get those and unpack them, which is going to be good fun. All right. Now, let's use this thing. Let's make the supply build pack do something when we run it for the first time. So let's just see that we can, when we go through staging, let's just double check that our cached asset is there. So let's set up what the build pack. So this script is in the bin folder. So we'll say the build pack directory is one down, and let's have ourselves a look-see at what's in that folder during staging. That looks pretty good as a bit of a no-op build pack. And so we are going to make that again, and then we will create it and upload it. So CF create build pack. I apologize for cheating, but this is the admin command for creating a new build pack. We give it a name for that Cloud Foundry file, some large number to put it at the end of the list, and enable it. We, of course, are not going to get very far without an app. So let's make ourselves an app. Which, again, I apologize for my anal retentiveness. Even though we're never going to actually see this, I feel like it should say hello world. Now, when we get back to sidecars, it is the new v3 commands that we're going to need. So we'll come back to those in a second. In the short term, let's just use the simple ones just to get moving. The path to this is simple. We're going to use our new build pack, which we've created, and the static file build pack. That should allow us to test our staging. Now, all this makes sense in my head. If anyone has questions, now is a good time for them. Okie dokie. So it's now moved on to the static file build pack staging. But we can see here my build pack in action, and the showing of the build pack contents. And as we said, as we sort of showed, that all it's done is unpack that zip file into some folder. So that was build pack dir, and then here's our dependencies. Someone one day might explain to me what this number is, but here is my upstream file that we could now use. We don't yet have this pretty line. We should get this pretty line and put it in so that our build pack looks like everyone else's build pack. So let us now echo etcd. It's never too early to make your build pack look cool. And now we want some version number. Turns out our build pack has our version file in it, so we know what our version is. So let's get that out. And then we'll pump it into our little output so everything looks good. Don't really need to do that anymore. Now, what I do need is perhaps to unpack this and have a look-see inside. So let's tar xfz buildpack dependencies. And again, not sure what that's for, but I do happen to know what this file looks like. Now, there, you know, at this point, other people have. Sorry, I'm going to take that step back. We do have the manifest also. So perhaps more correctly, I should look inside that manifest in real time, you know, during staging, pull out this file and, you know, et cetera, and get the right one. But the CF Linux FS3 file system doesn't have a tool for processing YAML, as best as I can tell. So that's just one step too far. And since our build pack only does one thing and I know everything about it, we're just going to go straight into, oh, I've got the wrong file. That's not going to work very well. But whoever didn't tell me that I downloaded the wrong file, you awful human beings. But we need that one. That wasn't going to work at all. 64. Right. So let's go back a step. So I need to fix that. I need to download the correct thing. That wouldn't have got us very far unless we're going to deploy this to a Raspberry Pi. Dun, 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 dun. What do we got there? AMD, we'll take that SHA. And we will AMD again. So I should parse that YAML file and get the value out, etc. But since I know everything about what I'm downloading, I know what its name looks like. So we're just going to yeah, pop it in there. We should unpack this somewhere rather than just where we are right now. So let's make a little tempter. And so now we're inside that. Let's go pop that in brackets. And yeah, so let's see what we get. Again, this is just my process. See what we unpack. All right, let's go through this sequence again. So we're going to create the build pack, and then we're going to, you know what? There is an update command, but I don't like it. So I tend to delete and create, and then we're going to push. So we're going to run those commands over and over again during our iteration. So I'm just going to put them all in one big command. Now, this is not the thing I would normally do. I would normally have a test harness, but showing you how to write test is out of scope. Tests are great. You should have tests. It's just we're not going to do it today. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, look at that. My build pack looks great already with its, you know, doesn't look good if it doesn't have that. Look at that. Look, it looks like a build pack all of a sudden. Okay, so in our unpacked folder, which was dot, we get this folder, and inside that folder is our 2 CLIs. And this is what we want. Really don't need the rest of the documentation, everything. What we want is to unpack these into the final droplet. And we want them to be in the path, because that's even better, so we can just use them. So let's do that. Let's now, so what we need to do now is we need to sort of make some directory somewhere that's going to be in the final droplet, and we want to have a bin folder. We'll come back to where this is, and what we want to do is to copy that folder. You know, we had those 2 things. We may as well keep the CTL one for good measure. We want to copy that into this magical new magical new folder. Let's assume that, oops, it's called that. And we now need to figure out what this magical folder is that if we put something into, it will be in the resulting droplet. Now, turns out that when this supply script is run, that we are given a set of inputs that are folders that we can work with. And since I can never remember them, I have, I'm going to borrow them from some work here. All right. Let's just plop these in. Typically, you just do this always. And even if you don't use them all, you may as well document what the inputs are. So the build directory is the app that you're working on. So we could interfere with the app and change it and change files. But our build pack is independent of the app, and we're not going to touch the folder. There's the cache dir for caching things. And oh, these two, these are the important ones. We want these ones. So if we put things into the dependencies directory, it will allow us to, this is our build pack. There are multiple, like, so as the staging happens, all the build packs are there, but we only want to interfere with the build pack directory, with the dependency directory for our build pack. I'm not sure what bad things happen if we start interfering with the other. So I'm not sure how to describe that. I apologize. I don't think real words came out of my mouth. So let me just see if SSH into the app and so explain that a different way. So I'm now looking at an app that has already been built. So this is post staging. And so we're now in the deps directory. So this is the final deps directory. This is that directory. And if we look inside it, we see that for each of the build packs that we're working with, they get an indexed subfolder. So if we go into 0, we see there's nothing in there. And that's a shame. But this is where we will be putting our etcd. So we will be creating a bin folder, and inside that we'll be creating the etcd binary. Obviously, we won't just be creating an empty folder, but a file, but that's what we're about to do. So we don't know what, at the time that we're writing this supply thing, we don't know where that folder is. And so we get this environment variable, which tells us we are 0 in this case. So hopefully that was more descriptive. So we will copy that into bin. Now, the novelty here is that if your build pack creates a bin folder, it will be added into the path automatically after staging or when it's shelled. So that's super nice. But just right now, it's not. So let's, during staging it, I don't believe it is. So let's add it to the path for our own entertainment and let us check that it's, working. And then we'll delete this later. We don't need that anymore. And I think that looks pretty good. We'll run our super command. Should have run the super command and then said something. I have nothing to say. Except stay hydrated and wear sunscreen when going outside. And don't smoke. And register the vote.
This is becoming a PSA.
Right.
I'm laughing behind my mute.
Please remember to.
Right. That's right. Don't put databases into production. I got that right. Why did this not work? What have I done wrong? I felt good about that. That was right. Anyone with smart ideas as to how I've got this wrong? Anyone see what I've done wrong?
We should all be pairing with you.
I know, right?
Horrible pair.
Is there a letter V, extra V in line 16?
That one there. You know what? Let's. How about we do this? Let's just show that it's what's in there. Then let's do debugging. I mean, this process is very similar to the process of creating Bosch releases and Bosch packages, or Docker files. And, you live in a perpetual state of nothing works, and then all of a sudden it does work. And instead of embracing and enjoying that process of things working, you move on to other things that aren't working. And that's our profession, really. That's why I like to stop when something works, because I like to embrace that. It's right there.
So are we just echoing the path or setting the path?
Excellent. Good job. I appreciate your work. 5 points to you.
Woohoo, go Bosch.
Cool. All right. That will work a treat. Now, okay, while that's building and demonstrating that etcd is now installed, we can take a step towards the sidecar part of this talk. You've now learned how to build a build pack, a very simple build pack that just always installs the latest of whatever it is that's got into it. The corollary, though, is that this supply script assumes that you're using cached build packs. If you wanted to support uncached or using it from GitHub, from Git, then you would also need to support the feature where this is where that isn't available. So if an uncached build pack would have nothing under the dependencies folder or no dependencies folder, and you would need to go to the manifest, pull out that URL and download it. Either through whatever tool you want to use. The tool that I've started using is from Stephen Levine's YJ tool. I find that quite handy. It's kind of cool. It does all sorts of multiplexing of inputs and outputs. I believe he built it because, my guess is because of the TOML. So in buildpack v3, it's TOML based. And so it allows you to take that TOML and turn it into other things, but it also supports YAML, which is our manifest, into JSON, and then you can pipe it into JQ and get the, again, out of scope. So just to point out that this YAML file, this shell script as it stands right now only supports the cached build pack. Where are we at? It worked. It worked a treat. Hooray! Look at us. All right. Now let's not do that again. All right. We now need our V3. We're going to move on to V3. So let us get a manifest.
So you have 9 minutes, and
I need 4 of them.
Yeah, you have a good pair with Rebecca, so maybe you can get it done. Everybody else is useless.
It would be faster if I'd stopped talking, but that's no fun. So let's move our manifest. By the way, this is I'm sure this is how everyone uses the Cloud Foundry help, is with the built-in grep feature. Let's pop that there. Alrighty, we have a manifest, and let's get rid of that. So what we need now is the sidecars bit, which, like everything else in the world, I don't remember live in front of you what that looks like. Fixtures. It looks like this. All right. I'm just going to, steal that for a moment. We'll come back to this. So what we know, though, I do want to prove a point, is that during the runtime of our container, because we put because we created a bin folder, it is automatically added to the path. So this is where we put etcd, and therefore etcd is available in the path inside a container. Therefore, I don't need to put any path here, and we're good to go. This is the command that you would read in the documentation about how to run the etcdproxy, and this is where you would put a list of hosts to start with. I'm on CFDev, and CFDev has this cool feature where this domain, this DNS entry references my local machine or the host machine. And so this will point to the etcd server that I have on my local machine. So if I was to say set local Dr. Nick, not set, what's it called? Put, of course. We can, in a minute, see that I can get that from my container. And we want to listen and explicitly just on the local host on the same port that a client might normally. And what this means, though, is that my client app, which is just static and it's not going to talk to etcd at all, only needs to talk to this, doesn't need to be configured, no need for it to know about certificates, etc., etc. The build pack, as you iterated this build pack, would set up certificates, would do all the things to make it have a better relationship. You would not hard code this in here. You would have some sort of, abstract command like start etcd.sh, and we would create this shell script, and we would look up these endpoints from VCAP services and build this command. But all that is out of scope for the 4 minutes we have remaining. All right, so let us now move to V3. I don't know if I can just move or have to delete. So V3 create app simple. V3 apply manifest. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a huge fan so far of this sequence, which is why I haven't used it to this point. But I'm not really here to criticize. All right, it's exciting. It's only exciting if you can start to imagine what sidecars might be good for. But you're still watching, so. Now you might, just to be clear, you might have seen me delete that from here, and yet they're still being printed out. Of course, I have not yet created and uploaded the new build pack, therefore I'm getting the most recent build pack. Dun, 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 dun. And down here, we will look at some logs. Dun, dun, dun. Hooray, look at us. So this is what a sidecar looks like in your logs. We get this instead of web/0, we get web. You know what? I kind of think that probably should still be web/0 to sort of point to the, but anyway, it's got the 0 at the end, so whatever. I guess it's web and 0 represents the container. And we looked at it before. But there is our sidecar. The sidecar has a name, which came from the manifest. That was that name there, put into capitals. And anything that it outputs to standard out will go there. Not 100% sure why it sits there, not just moving on. So it just sits there for a while and eventually works, which is a bit, not great for demos. It's a bit boring, and I feel like I have to keep talking. But before the final, finale where I demonstrate that it works, does anyone have questions?
I think you were talking about the fact that the utility of this is going to be in the use cases. Have you been thinking of use cases? Outside of like cool demos with etcd?
Have I? Yes. Good question. I did put them at the start, but hang on. Why does Nginx not listen to any Nginx people bright ideas? I'm doing a demo, so my brain is not capable of debugging. Why would that not work? How could this be wrong? There's nothing to not work about this.
It's saying, does it have anything to do with the ports there?
Yeah, I failed to make TCP connection to, I could just stop at asking. I can never remember this either. Huge fan of open book exams. Manifest. What is that node check? Oh, how do I do checks? What do we want? We want process ports. Oh, but I need the God damn it. Whatever. All right, that refuses to work, and I don't know why. So I apologize for that. But demonstrations. All right, let's wrap up. So I you know what? If I could think of lots, I would have started. The first one I tried was Consul. I thought that would have been cool. But it turns out that Consul has multiple. It's sort of a bidirectional connection, I think, and it was having trouble. We have chat questions. Yeah. Maybe listen, but it's not. Yeah. So Rebecca's suggesting, okay, you can't read screen. That's something about listening. But the part that's not working is not my bit. It's the static file buildpack Nginx listening on 8080. So it's not even my. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I'll blame CFDev. Typically, it's always CFDev's fault. You know what? We can just try pushing again. Pushing again might just fix it. Stop and start again.
So a quick question while it is pushing. So the use cases might be something like running APM alongside with the application.
Yep.
So the question is, if like APM is running or something else is running, we might need to modify the main build pack if there is such a thing. Release. So what release is emitting as the main command to run. So in other words, how two build packs can communicate with each other to modify parameters of each other. Like for example, if I have a Java build pack and some APM, I might want to inject something in a
right. If the app, if a certain build pack is also available, then add this flag to the start command. You mean that sort of thing?
Yep.
Yeah, and that is definitely, I think they're stumbling through that with, not stumbling is not the right word. In the V3 where they're starting to tease these things out, like there is a PHP build pack, but that's not the one that you can't just use that and assume your app is going to run on PHP. There is another build pack called PHP Web, which has a dependency on PHP, and it is the one that has to figure out what are all the other build packs that have been used and figure out what to actually run. Am I with Nginx or am I with Apache, and that sort of multiplexing. Now the good news is that this process is two-staged. Like there is the staging where files are laid out on the droplet, and then the start script. Actually, there's another phase which is the profile D scripts which get added into memory. So your staging can create profile shell scripts that will be loaded into memory, and they are loaded up before every process. And so you could be putting things into environment variables about, hey, I exist, or you could be creating files dynamically based on what's in var vcat services and other environment variables. And then the start scripts would start, and they could have collected this sort of information. But you could also just look at the file system and say, does this build pack exist?
Okay, so first all supplies are running. If there are supplies in multiple build packs, then like a compile is running on all of them, if there are on all of them. And
supply, if they're supply build packs, then the supply script is run.
Right, so scripts can be supply, can be compile, detect, release.
Yep.
Right, so so supply is running first, and supply is laying out the directory, and then the rest of the script. So what if two build packs have release script?
Finalize, I think it's called now.
Oh, finalize. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Only the last one has its finalized script run.
Okay.
Now this contract may change, and this, when the build pack and Cappy team work together on how a supply build pack might be able to inject itself, perhaps it will have a support finalized. Perhaps that'll be the contract, that a supply script, a supply build pack might be able to have a finalized. Maybe it's called Sidecar, something like that. There might be some contract that if this endpoint exists, then that is where you'll start your Sidecar. Maybe. I'm just, I have no idea. Until Eric mentioned it, I wasn't aware of any progress. But maybe you put that there, and that's how the Sidecar gets created. Is that what you were mentioning?
Yeah. So pretty much, if there are multiple build packs, how they can affect each other. And one.
Right. Well, okay. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So. Right. How they affect each other. Let's chat afterwards, because I feel like I might be going all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So let's have a look inside our working thing, and so we can see that there is Nginx and there is our Sidecar. So that's exciting. It also means I do happen to have that there, and remember I put that there. So if I now go into my container and I get local, hooray! Look at us. It works. And that is pretty exciting. Obviously, there's more to be done. You would have to look up, instead of this, we would wrap a script. So at this point, I really would like to create something like start etcdproxy.sh, and I put that in there. But I now need to get this set of host names from somewhere, right? So it's now I need to sort of echo vcap services, etc., etc., etc. AQ magic, right? Host equal something like that to get it out, and that sort of process of abstracting that away, and setting up certificates. All the other parts of either authentication or security, etc. But that is the gist of it, and it is really easy. And I've done it with Shell, just as a sort of a call out. There is the where the build pack, where that command came from, the tool you're using is this library here, and it has a bunch of tools in it for writing all of your build pack in Go, if that is how you'd like to do it, which is how a lot of the core team build packs have been done. So I'm 5 minutes over. I apologize for that. Examples, yeah. So APM is probably the big one. So they want to rip out a bunch of things from existing build packs and perhaps put them in here. So I guess New Relic, those sorts of things would have their own dedicated build pack. Sorry, Max, Dr. Max, for not answering your question. Any other fun questions? Not a problem. Let me, there's the slides. And for anyone that wants to go through that walkthrough, it's there. But yeah, I hang out in the Build Packs channel if you have any questions, and give it a month, and we might have a whole new API for what this looks like for how to do this. So that'll be fun too. And I guess the other thing, since no one else is talking, I did start a series of blog posts on this sort of topic about sidecars and build packs. And what I've just shown you is probably the premise of the next one as well. But that sequence of blog posts will continue, and we'll talk about testing and things like that, because I think more people want to build packs from this point on. Supply build packs are cool. You should make some. No one else is talking, so I'm just going to keep talking about things.
Well, so just another example of how one build pack needs to affect another. You mentioned APM New Relic, right? So if New Relic is running on the same container with the Java code, then probably Java parameters need to be modified to give some memory to New Relic. Right? So memory parameters need to be adjusted. Right? So that is an example when you have not just Java build pack, but also New Relic running some process on the same container, then parameters for Java needs to be modified to take in consideration that something else is also running.
Right. If you want to, if you have an example, like we can sort of pair and perhaps I can point to how you might solve that problem. But essentially, the staging, the build pack, your supply build pack could put some files on the file system that sort of say, "Hey, I'm there." It could create a profile D script that gets loaded into memory that could add environment variables to say, "Hey, I'm there, and here's what you need to know about me." But then your Java app, when it starts up, would need to go and look for those things, or the Java.
So responsible. So still one single party is responsible for, you know. Okay. Yep. That makes sense.
Cool. I've been making a bunch of build packs. So under Stark and Wayne, I just had fun sort of packaging some things, and so close. I spelled that so close to almost being a thing. Image Magic, free TDS, WordPress CLI. I started it's interesting to start to use these supply build packs to make it easier to bring non-Cloud Foundry type things into. This is a fun one, the dot profile. Everyone can upload a dot profile except Java people easily. So this build pack means that you can. And look how simple it is. It's literally just, you know, that. So build packs are fun. And I you know, recommend you at least build one or two just so you understand the gist of it. I'm finished. I don't want to talk anymore.
Thanks, Dr. Nick.
Thank you, Dr.
All right, since there's no one that's going to, we obviously lost Dr. Max, because I'm pretty sure at this point, if he was polite, he would sort of say goodbye. Cool. All right, everyone, you're all fabulous. I look forward to seeing hopefully most of you in October in Hague. That should be fun. Bye.
Thanks.